Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to it, you members of the 6 o'clock club. That's right. You're all official members of this it doesn't get you anything except for bragging rights, but you got up in that golden hour of 6 a.m. to be here with us and to share in the information and discussion and everything else going on. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for coming in and joining us today, Tuesday, which means we've got our regular weekly guests. It's the one day a week that we consistently have had the same two guests on for, going on 10 years. And, for me, I like that consistency. I love it. And I love to do it. We're jumping into it here today. Tuesday means Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, is going to be joining us. And he brings with him today the weekly top 3. And we've got 3 big discussions and talking points today that we're going to be diving into. Starting off with a look at the new fiscal year and how it's starting out from an oil price and production perspective, and what the budget says if we end up over that target. We're also going to talk about how the drumbeat of the changing PFD continues. That's what we continue to hear. Got to change the PFD. And finally, we're going to talk about capital projects and lessons from the past year, and hopefully how Anchorage isn't going to decide to write some checks that the state is going to have to end up covering in the long run. So it's a lot of deep discussions today from Mr. Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. I hope you stick around for that here in hour 1. In hour 2, we'll do a little recap. I've got some stories that I want to talk about as well, and including this e-bike thing, which I didn't think was that big a deal. But apparently it's ruffled some feathers, and we'll talk about that as well. I think the governor may be onto something, maybe not for the right reasons, but more government regulation is never a good thing, in my opinion. It's just in my basic philosophy, anytime you could stop unnecessary bureaucracy or regulation, it's a good thing, regardless of the reasons given. That's my libertarian streak coming out there. So we could talk about that. And then we'll be joined by Chris Story, the man from Homer, who will be coming on board to talk with us about something. I don't know. He didn't tell me what it was today. He hasn't told me yet what his weekly life coaching and uplift thing is going to be about. But we'll see what he has to say. We'll see what he has to say. And he's gonna give us a little bit of a uplift and betterment segment, which to me is always one of the highlights of my week. because, sometimes we get a little beat down. And we need a little bit of that boost, that positive mental attitude boost, PMA. That's why we bring the guru on board. So it's all it's all there. So all right. So hi, how are you? How are you, how are you guys doing? How's the summer? I mean, we've had, whatever it has been now, 4 nice days in a row, almost 4 nice days in a row. I'm feeling like summer might actually now have a foothold in what we're doing here. I mean, that's great, right? Ooh, man, it's been such a tough one. Although in one aspect, it's been good, in that it has been the slowest fire season in state history. Since they started tracking it, it's been the slowest fire season in state history. Although they did get a bump this weekend. The Division of Forestry and Fire is actively responding to a swarm of lightning strikes that set off fires yesterday in the interior near Delta and Salcha. They had over 7,000 ground strikes, according to the BLM. 7,000. That's a lot of lightning, baby. It led to some fires, including the McCoy Creek fire, which was reported about 25 miles north of the Salcha boat ramp. That is estimated to be about 25 acres and is burning in black and white spruce with an 80% active perimeter. There are multiple structures threatened, but no evacuation notices at this time. I imagine that those are mostly wreck cabins up in the Salcha somewhere. Helicopter crews and fire bosses and Division of Forestry engines, along with initial attack resources, are responding. And the fire is also supposed to get some rain, apparently today, tomorrow. The Pogo mine fire near Delta is estimated at about 150 acres from a cluster of ignitions. Aviation resources responded and found no targets of value at risk or structures currently threatened. That's in a modified management zone that's expected to receive rain both last night and today. The 6 Mile Pogo fire, that's another one, is estimated at 6 acres and is not threatening any targets of value. Fire bosses and crews are responding. The BLM is also fielding numerous reports of new lightning-caused fires in the interior, including one wildfire reported just south of mile 100 of the Elliott Highway. Although, again, not threatening any sites of value. Most are plotting around in remote parts of Alaska. And finally, fire number 200 is the Moose Fire, where they had smoke drifting over the road, but the fire not immediately threatening any other sites of value, reported at 4 acres and burning. The National Weather Service issued a red flag effective yesterday until about 4 a.m. today for the central interior, Yukon Flats, Deltana, and Tanana Flats. So things started to dry out a little bit. They got some hot weather. Things started to dry out. Then you get the lightning strikes. It's kind of the perfect storm. But still, even with all that, it is the slowest fire season in state history. That's good news. I mean, I was there for the largest fire in the world when nearly 1 million acres burned just north of Fairbanks. I mean, that summer, it was like the whole summer was like living in a smokehouse. I mean, you talk about bad air quality. I remember one of the borough employees who was dealing was a acquaintance of mine. He came over right before the show, and we were talking about stuff, and he happened to have one of those handheld. It was like a handheld ppm meter or whatever, and he was like, "Yeah, the regular value that you're supposed to not exceed is like, I think whatever it was, 500 or 600, whatever on this meter." And he's like, but you could see it in the studio. You could see a little bit of a haze. I mean, outside it looked like the movie The Fog, right? I mean, it had just rolled in. And he's like, well, let me test the air right here in the studio. And it was like double what was supposed to be the safe. And I'm just like, oh, I do not miss that. I do not miss that at all. Oh man. So good news though, that fire season is it's been incredibly small this year, and I'm glad to hear it. And hopefully we can avoid it for the rest of the summer. Hopefully this is just a real short-lived deal, and we can get in on that. All right. What else do I got here? Man, I don't want to get into this e-bike thing because I think that's a post Brad thing because I could get on a real tear over that. Oh, maybe we should talk about this real quick. Mayor Bronson is proposing for those of you who are not following the shenanigans of what's happening in Anchorage. Oh man, it's like it's almost like an episode of Jerry Springer writ large. Really, this whole thing between the assembly and the mayor and the the back and forth and the theatrics inside the mayor's office and people leaving and the accusations flying, and it's like a Jerry Springer show. God love Jerry, God bless you, Jerry, for who just passed here recently. But I mean, that's exactly what it's like. But the mayor, I thought for sure that there would be some more outrage in this, but Mayor Bronson said the city is now willing and likely to not be using the Sullivan Arena as a large-scale homeless shelter this winter. And instead, because he doesn't want to be responsible for people freezing to death in the street, they are going to be purchasing or wanting to purchase plane tickets for people who want to travel to communities within Alaska or to warmer climates out of state. If they want to go be where they've got family or where some kind of support system could take them in, they're going to be doing that. They said it's cheaper. They said that $600 to $1,000 flight is the same cost as a 6 to 10 day stay at a homeless shelter, and so they're going to send them. One caveat to this whole thing is that they will only send somebody to some place where they know they either have family or some kind of support system that they can immediately be plugged into. They're not like put on a plane and then dropped off somewhere. They are actually sent someplace to where they have family or there's some kind of program in place, where they have a support network that can be done. I thought that there would be a lot more hullabaloo about this, but apparently even the assembly is thinking about it, and we'll see what happens with that. I mean, we're actually exporting our homeless. The mayor is also emphasizing that Anchorage is shouldering a disproportionate share of the state's homeless problem. Anchorage has 40% of the population of the state, but they have 65% of the homeless population of the state, and said our taxpayers can't keep footing the entire bill. So it's his lead up and prelude to asking the state for more money to deal with the issue. But we'll see what happens with that. All right, coming up on it, we want to jump into the weekly top 3 here as soon as we can. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Make sure you come join us out on Facebook, where now, if you're on Facebook, you can give stars to the show, and you can go over to YouTube, and you can do super stickers and super chats, and it's all a money grab for me. Don't worry about it. It's all my capitalistic tendencies. That's all it is. But we can at least hang out and enjoy each other. We're going to be back. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
What is that?
Common sense.
Regularly heard on American radio.
Michael Duke Show.
Radio.
Okay. It's all a money grab. That's all it is. Just trying to make a buck around here. Let's go over and see what Brad Keithley has to say this morning. We'll get something going on. Hello, sir. How are you? Uh-oh. I got no audio, my friend. You are muted? Oh, you're muted yourself. It says you can't unmute because the guest chose to mute themselves.
All right, how about that?
Well, see, now I didn't choose to mute you. That's all your fault. You cannot blame me for that. That's all I'm saying.
You start punching buttons down here, and God only knows what happens.
Oh, man, I was just saying, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screens, a mixer, 2 keyboards, 4 mouse. It's, it's like a game of, I don't ever have to do Sudoku because I'm right here getting it all on.
Well, I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I still managed to hit the wrong one.
I know. Exactly. So how you doing? How's it going?
I'm doing great. That seems like a lot of fires. I mean, that was a long list of
fires.
It's
only like a half a dozen. There's normally, by the way, they numbered those fires. I only mentioned one. There has been 200 fires because that last one was number 200. Normally by this time of year, I think it was like 1,800 fires by this point. So it is this, most of them are a few acres, or they let them burn, or they really only go after them when there's structures involved, or it's something in their management plan that says, don't let this area burn or whatever. But I remember the haystack fire in Fairbanks where they burned 1 million acres. It was about 12 miles north of Fairbanks, and 989,000 or something acres burned over the course of a short period of time. They had to evacuate whole neighborhoods. And there's been some tough years up there. So this is a good one.
And they say wood stoves are a problem.
Well, that was my laughter, because they were going after us about air quality in the winter, and he flicked open that thing and said, this is supposed to be a bad air quality day in the winters, like 500 or 600. Let me see what it says here inside the studio in the building. Oh, 1,350. Oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, it was just a number of fires that started at once. That's the out of that one event, out of that one lightning strike.
Well, yeah, that one lightning strike. They said, what did they say? 7,000 strikes? Is that what I said? Yeah, the interior had over 7,000 strikes of lightning, ground strikes, according to the BLM. That's wow. You're just like, that was a heck of a storm,
Yeah, we don't usually get lightning down in Anchorage. Does Fairbanks get a lot of lightning?
Oh, Fairbanks can get in the summers they can get a lot of lightning. I remember one year, the most amazing storm I ever watched. This would probably be close to 30 years ago. I actually pulled over and was watching it I was on a hill or something out looking, and I could see over the flats. And it was just like from horizon to horizon, as I looked south, you could just see strike, 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 strike. It was an amazing sight. I'm glad I wasn't thinking about the forest fires at that point, but it is amazing. Definitely amazing. And
so 30 years ago, you were 5? You were driving along the road at age 5?
I was driving around at age 5. Don't let the beard fool you, baby. Don't let it fool you. So we were lamenting the other day. I was looking at some pictures, and I'm like, 10 years ago, my beard was like more salt and pepper. I went from salt and pepper, brown, and a little bit of gray to full on Santa beard in about 4 years. And I don't know if that was the kids, the job, the thing. I don't know what it was, but bam, just like that.
I like the pictures that Terry posts every once in a while of you back in the day when you didn't have a beard, when the two of you were just starting out and didn't have a beard.
Yeah, that's some old school stuff. If I shaved my beard off, I'd look like I was about 14. So, it is what it is. So, all right. Well, we're 30 seconds out, ready to go. We're going to hit on all the things that we just talked about, and we'll see what goes on. Please like and share, like and follow. If you feel like giving stars, you can do that here. If you're on YouTube, you can send super chats or whatever. Let's get into it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. Welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're jumping into it with Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3 kicks off here, and I guess we just just going to go get started. Good morning, Mr. Keithley, sir. Welcome to the 6 o'clock club. As usual, you're like an official member of that all the time. You ready to do the deep dive into the pool here?
I am. I've got numbers. I got charts. I'm surrounded by this stuff. So
numbers and charts, and boy, you really know how to talk to a girl, don't you? Well, let's start off with number one, which is a look at the new fiscal year and how it's starting out from the perspective of oil price and production. And what does that mean for us if the budget ends up over what the target price is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, we're starting out on a good note this year. We also started out on a good note last year. I should quickly add, we started with high oil prices. I think we were still over 100 last July, and we started out with strong production. Really gave a good kick to the year. This year we're not starting out with as high an oil price, but we're starting out with strong oil prices. We're not starting out with as good a production. We're down about 9% from what, using a baseline of last year's production would tell you we ought to be at. So the production's a little thin, but production has a much lower impact on revenues than does price. The price right now, I ran the charts this morning, and it'll post at 8:30 Anchorage. The price right now for FY24, projected price based upon the futures market is about $83, which is $10 above the $73 price level projected in the spring revenue forecast and used as a baseline for the FY24 budget. So price is up, and that's good. It's worth it's probably worth about $800 million or so in terms of additional revenue. So that's positive also if it holds for the year, and we're way early in the year, so it's way too soon to tell. But that's it. It caused me to think, that strong start caused me to think, okay, the legislature in the FY24 budget set up tiers. They set up a base budget that was set at $73 a barrel, predicated at $73 a barrel. And then they set up tiers if the price went above that. One of those tiers kicks in an additional PFD amount that would be paid in in the fall of 2024 if it kicked in. So I went back and grabbed that. Yeah, there you go. Have it up on the chart. Have it up on the screen. So I said charts all over the place. And so I went back and grabbed that, and it shows that between $73 and $83, which is where we are now, the surplus estimated at if we achieve production levels, estimated at $636 million or so. The surplus would go to the CBR, roughly equates to $3 billion FY24 ending CBR balance. So it would, the first $10 of surplus oil prices, surplus over the 73 projected price, would go to the CBR and help refill the CBR once. We only kick into an additional amount for the PFD, which would be classified as an energy relief payment. We only kick into that once we go beyond the $83 price level, and we're not neither the current price nor the future price levels in the current futures market are projecting that we're going to get above 83. So we're not into that tranche, the 83 to 105 tranche yet, and above 105 it goes back to the CBR. So there's good news in the sense that prices are starting out stronger. There's not as good news, but not horrible news, that production levels aren't starting out at what one would have projected based upon last year's baseline. So we're a little short on production levels, but that's not as I say, that doesn't have near the effect that price does. Good news on price, but we're not in the range yet. We've got to go even further to kick into the price range where we would be having some additional PFD paid out in 2024. So it's a strong start to the year. And if when I was giving this review last year after the first month in on FY23, I was saying it was a strong start to the year, and then we saw what happened to the year. Prices fell off, production volumes came in lower than projected, and we ended up with having a almost running a deficit last year. We were pretty close to a deficit. Now we had a little bit of a deficit. So the first month's results are not. They're not necessarily sort of like,
past performance is not indicative of future results kind of thing, right?
Right. Things in the rearview mirror may seem farther away or closer or whatever.
Yeah, they appear, right?
They appear. But it's not. It's worse than the bad news, and it's worse than that we're starting out about even. So it's worth noting. And it's worth sort of tucking away in your brain as you start to factor in what's going to go on this fiscal year, but it's not determinative yet by far.
It's interesting to see. We've seen the oil prices kind of go all over the place. You said you've looked at the futures market; it's not quite there at the $83 plus mark, which is the next level of jump. Where do you think we're going to be seeing the oil prices go this rest of this summer and into the fall? I mean, and with production, what does it mean for the state? I mean, is there a best case scenario and a worst case scenario here?
Yeah, EIA. I mean, it's interesting to look at the forecast. EIA, the Energy Information Agency Administration, the federal sort of guru on prices and numbers and predictions. EIA is still holding to a forecast, an FY 24 forecast of $83 and an FY 25 forecast of $85, significantly above where the futures market is for FY 25. And they are basing that, as are others, on ultimately the Saudi production cuts having some effect on price, pulling in, or having some effect on supply and kicking up price as a result of reducing supply. There's two factors that are offset, that have offset that, or that have mitigated that effect so far. One is Russia keeps producing more than anybody anticipated, given the sanctions. The Russians are now able to sell. They've developed enough of a fleet that's outside of the sanction system, enough of a tanker fleet that they're actually getting above the price cap that the Western nations tried to set on their oil price. So Russia, the Russian volumes continue to be a surprise. And the other big thing that's affecting all this is Chinese demand. There's speculation. There was expectation early on that China demand was going to come back, roaring back strong. It's not done that, and it continues to be Chinese demand continues to be suppressed, and so that's had a suppressing impact on demand, and as a consequence, the suppressing impact on price. But if you look at EIA and you look at IEA, the International Energy Agency, which also makes these sorts of predictions, they're both saying that they anticipate that price will continue to remain strong. The futures market isn't picking up on that. The futures market isn't going to the same levels that EIA and IEA are saying that they think demand will go to. But the futures market sometimes is cautious. Sometimes it's overly aggressive, but sometimes it's cautious. And I think because current demand and current supply continue to remain sort of in balance, the futures market's being cautious about where things are going. So there are people who are expecting better things. Let me say that out there.
Well, and just for folks who know, the futures market is kind of like a betting pool on where things are going, right? I mean, I'm dumbing it down for the people in the back of the class like me, but that's essentially, it's a bunch of experts getting together, trying to predict price. I mean, it's not always the perfect crystal ball. Like you said, sometimes they're too aggressive, sometimes they're too cautious, but it's an overall indicator of where people think things are going to be going. And of course, a lot of this is based on confidence and everything else. So it's an indicator of one kind or another.
It's an indicator. I mean, it's people with money. I mean, you got to put money in to participate in the futures market. So it's people with money making bets with money. And there's also an element in there of producers hedging. I mean, producers will sell forward. They'll sell production 6 months or 9 months or a year, 2 years forward by going into the futures market and essentially hedging their production. So it's people who are, have a serious interest in making sure that they're selling their production at market prices, participating in it as well. But you got speculators in there. You got a whole bunch of different people in there, and it produces a mix of a range of expectations, reflects a range of expectations about where things are going. It's the best. I will say this: it's the best indicator we've got from a market standpoint of where people think prices are going. IEA and EIA are good indicators of where, frankly, computer programs think we're going, because they build these computer programs that factor in demand, factor in supply, factor in all sorts, weather, factor in all sorts of variables, and sort of make the best prediction they can out of that. And those are predictions that are based upon the best things that software programs, computer programs can tell us. But the futures market is the best thing we have, the best measure we have of what people with money, putting money into a market, think where the price is going.
So the good news is that we're about where we were last year, which seems to be a little bit above water, but that could change at any time. We're running on the edge of one way or the other. But if it does go up, at least we know where the money's going, right?
Yeah. They've set the tiers, and it's not. I mean, last year's tiers. This is second or third year they've done this tier system. Last year's tier was K through 12 pre-funding, and there was a whole we're not going to have to worry about K through 12 because we're going to have these robust prices. We've predicted a low price. We're going to have these robust real prices, and we're going to have all this money in K through 12 pre-funding. Well, that didn't work out. So this year's tiers are not that. This year's tiers are CBR, PFD split, and then CBR again. So it's
good. All right. Well, let's move on for a tease of number 2. We can hear the drum beats. We can hear the chant of PFD, PFD, PFD. You can already see it. They're coming, they're coming hard, coming after it even more. Give me a quick tease before we go to break.
Well, we talked last week a lot about the permanent fund earnings and the articles that had popped up the week before about the permanent fund earnings being under threat, and maybe we're going to run out of money in the permanent fund, in the earnings reserve account, and all sorts of parade of horribles, and sort of tying into the Permanent Fund Corporation's push for a constitutional amendment that would unify the two permanent fund funds, the permanent fund corpus and the permanent fund earnings reserve, unify those together and make the draws out of that. That drumbeat has continued, and I'll talk about an op-ed that Larry Pursley did that continues that drumbeat, and it's just really bothersome to me. It's almost like a scam, right? It's almost they're leaving out facts on purpose so they can make their case, but it's not a real case because they're leaving out additional facts. And we're gonna talk about that again.
Selective fact selection? I mean, are you liars, damn liars in statistics? Are you kidding me? Brad Keithley, our guest, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We return with more, the weekly top 3, right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Brad Keithley, our guest here on the Michael Duke Show. We're ready to jump in and get through this. Feel free to leave a comment in the chat room if you could fit a word in beside what Harold said. Whole screen of nothing but Harold's comment. Literally, I just looked up and there's like every comment is Harold in this entire slide. I got to slide down one to see it. Anyway, yeah, I look at this and there is more art to science than when when we're talking about oil prices and everything else and all these things, because again, it's based on consumer confidence. That's part of it, which is kind of the more amorphous part of it. And then supply and demand factors in and everything else. But you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, look at what happened. You have things get thrown at you, whether it's pandemic or other things that can throw a whole monkey wrench in that whole deal. And so it really is a betting club. It's just like best guess. This is our best guess at where things may be going.
And it's a best guess we shouldn't be making. I mean, the Alaska state government shouldn't be making. We've talked on previous programs about the fact that, we're living or dying on a guess of where oil prices are going to go for each fiscal year. We don't do that for the PFD. We don't do that for permanent fund earnings. For both of those, we do historic averages, and we have a solid basis, sort of money in the bank. We're just playing with money in the bank and sort of eking it out on an average basis going forward. That's how we treat those two accounts. For oil, we just do something wildly different that the state got into the habit of in the 1970s and 1980s and 1990s, and it just can't break, which is, we're trying to guess at where oil prices are going and basing our budget on that. I've argued in probably too many commentaries in the Friday column I do in the Landmine and on the show, that we ought to be basing oil prices and oil revenues in the same way that we base permanent fund dividends and permanent fund earnings, which is on a historic average.
Well, that's number 4 of the Charter of Changes, is change the budgeting, right? Because, I mean, again, going back to Sean Parnell, he's basing his budget on $115 a barrel of oil, and it's already down to 88 or whatever it was, kind of thing. I mean, we've said that for years on this program, that they need to do some kind of 5-year rolling average of what they've historically brought in instead of this pie in the sky stuff, because it just makes for a budget that is totally divorced from reality in a lot of ways.
I mean, it would make this show slightly less interesting because I wouldn't talk about oil prices and give an oil price report every 6 weeks or so on the show or in the Landmine column. But it would make our budgeting a lot more solid. We would be dealing with dollars that are already in the bank, and we're just paying them out in a certain way, as opposed to this process we go through of, let's guess. We guess in the fall price forecast, and the governor bases his budget on that, and then that'll change. And in the spring revenue forecast, we've got a different set of number, and that's what the legislature bases the budget on. And then it changes again, and it just, we're always trying to guess ahead as opposed to dealing on the solid ground of the money we have in hand. And the other, another aspect of that, it would give our government a counter-cyclical balance in terms of revenues. Now, when the economy's up, when the economy's booming because oil prices are up, and there's a lot of activity on the slope, and there's a lot of jobs, we got a lot of state government revenue too. And so we start, pinging that into the economy. We got the economy bouncing around on these high dollars. When oil prices come down and jobs are down and activity on the slopes down, well, state government's down too because oil prices have come down. So we've got a problem in the private sector and we got a problem in the government sector. If we did these averages, we would end up being counter-cyclical, because as oil prices went up, we'd be still, averaging coming from when oil prices were down. And when oil prices were down, we'd be averaging from when oil prices were up. And so we would have a counter-cyclical fiscal policy, which is what you want from the government when you're trying to even out your economy.
I always found it interesting that you had that kind of counter thing going on between when oil prices were up, the state economy did well. Meanwhile, the private sector was struggling because of the cost of energy and oil and gas and everything else. But when it went the other way around, the state is struggling and people are feeling a lot better because it's costing less to heat their homes and everything else. Maybe this would help that problem as well. I mean, it'd be nice to think that anyway.
It would. I mean, everything. We'd be a lot more balanced if we used an average oil price as opposed to this sort of
Pie in the sky, right?
Pie in the sky or crystal ball reading.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Please like and share. Stars and super chats are available if you want to help support the show that way. Let's get back into it. Number 2 of the weekly top 3, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like it, share, like it, follow, do all the things. Let's go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
That's right. I am not yo daddy, but that's okay. Yeah, I know you're disappointed. All right, let's get back into it. The weekly top 3. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, joins us. The drums of war against the PFD. It's a chant. You could see it in every op-ed, in every piece of news, in every editorial in the Binkley family blog, and all these other things. You could see it. All of our problems would be solved if we just stopped giving that ratty PFD to the people. And we just took it for ourselves because we know better than you how to spend this money. Brad, those drums continue to beat, and they continue to be deceptive in what they're talking about.
Yeah, the latest iteration of that is oh my God, the sky is falling. The earnings reserve account is running out of money. We need to change the way the permanent fund operates so that we combine the permanent fund corpus and the permanent fund earning constitutionally, combine the permanent fund corpus and the permanent fund earnings account, and then take the percent of market value off of that combined amount going forward. As you pointed out, that's actually one way to raid the corpus, because if the earnings account gets run down, or if the earnings don't achieve 5% per year, then they're taking some money out. They potentially are taking some money out of the corpus in order to balance the budget. But it's really at its core, it's really a way of trying to squeeze the PFD. If you set the take at only 5% and don't have the ability to, in the earnings reserve account, to take more or to sort of use that as a balance account, then you're really going to be squeezing the PFD even tighter into a smaller and smaller amount. This week, or this past week, we talked about this on the show last week, and I think it was number 1 because it's something that's really troubling me. This week it's sort of down to number 2, but the articles are continuing. Larry Pursley had an op-ed in the Wrangell Sentinel, which he owns, which was picked up in the Ketchikan Daily News, and I'm sure will spread Juneau and Anchorage and Fairbanks along the way. The headline is, "It's only permanent if we change it," and it's talking about the fact the earnings reserve is at risk, and we need to change the structure of the permanent fund to combine the corpus, constitutionally combine the corpus, the earnings reserve, and goes on from that. Here's the deal. We talked about this last week, but I want to emphasize it again. Here's the deal that's being left out in all of these columns. The one that Andrew Kitcheman did first in the Beacon, the one that James Brooks did in the Beacon, the one that Matt Buxton has done in his Midnight Sun blog, which is now called the Alaska Memo, and the one that Pursley is missing. And I'm sure the Binkley family blog, I'm sure the ADN op-ed page will come to it as well along the way. Here's what they're missing. There's $8 billion that got taken out of the earnings reserve over the last few years. $4 billion got taken out in FY20. $4 billion more got taken out in FY22. They weren't required. They weren't necessary for dividends. They weren't required to fund government. They weren't required for inflation proofing. They were just unilateral takes by the legislature from the earnings reserve and putting that money in the permanent fund corpus. So if you have an account that's supposed to have $12 billion in it, and you take 8 billion out, you secrete 8 billion of it into the permanent fund corpus, and you only have 4 billion left, yeah, you got a problem. But the problem isn't that you've only got 4 billion left. The problem is you took 8 billion out. Here's what the solution to the issue should be. The first 4 billion explicitly was treated as a prepayment of future inflation proofing payments. And the second 4 billion should be treated in the same way, because it wasn't taken out for any statutory reason. It wasn't taken out for any good policy reason. It was just taken out. And it should be treated as a prepayment of inflation proofing in future years as well. If you do that, if you treat that $8 billion as prepayment of inflation proofing, we're good to the end of the decade. And we're probably good way beyond that, but we're at least good to the end of the decade. And we don't need to be going into this panic mode about where the earnings reserve is going. So, but you read any of these articles, you read the original Kitchenman article, you read the Brooks article, you read the Matt Buxton article, you read the Larry Pursley editorial, none of them mention the $8 billion. It's like, well, it disappeared. Now we got a problem because we only got 4 billion left.
Well, because
it's just like a scam. It's just like a scam.
It's a crisis of our own making. And by our own making, I mean Bert Stedman's making, because that's what it was. They transferred that money out of there to put more pressure on the ERA and the fund in the future to have an argument to say, well, look, now we're running out of money. We're only running out of money because you transferred $8 billion over there in the last 5 years.
Yep. And none, and that's not picked up in any of these commentaries. It's like, well, somehow magically by its regular operation, we're down to the last $4 billion, and that's a huge problem. Well, it's not. That's not what happened. It's not by its own operation we're down to $4 billion. We're down to $4 billion because the legislature took $8 billion out of it and stuck it into the corpus. So it keeps striking me every time I read this. It's like a scam. Oh, my God, we're down to $4 billion. There's a crisis. Where's the $8 billion? I mean, tell me about the $8 billion. Tell me how we treat the $8 billion, and then maybe we can have a discussion. Problem is, if they talk about the $8 billion and they admit that the $8 billion should be treated as a prepayment, there is no problem. So every time I see one of these articles and the $8 billion isn't mentioned, it's just, they're just scamming the public.
Well, again, this has been the whole push the entire time. For the last 10 years, this has been the push as to what direction we're going on this. All right. Final thoughts on number 2 before we move on to number 3, Brad?
Well, it's just, whenever you see these headlines, ask yourself and ask your friends and ask your representative, what about the $8 billion? What about the inflation proofing prepayment? Doesn't that mean we don't have a problem? And especially if you get a legislator that looks at you with like deer in the headlights, who doesn't understand what's going on, the scam is working. So just when you talk to your rep or when you talk to anybody, ask about the $8 billion.
Well, especially since SB 26 and the POMV was supposed to eliminate, that was supposed to have the inflation proofing baked in, but they seem to have forgotten that part of it. That was part of the pitch, was that it had inflation proofing baked in, and now they're trying to figure it out outside of that, and that's part of this crisis moment as well. So it's disingenuous. The whole thing overall is just disingenuous. All right, well, let's move on to number 3, which is capital projects. And you say capital projects, a lesson from the past. What can we learn from the past, Brad? How can we inform our future choices?
One of my first activities, or one of my first issues when I started Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, and indeed even before that, when I started worrying about fiscal policy, was the amount of money that Bill Stoltz, frankly, who was then chairman of the House Finance Committee, was sticking into the capital budget for various projects. The American Airlines Arena, the Alaska Airlines Arena at the UAA campus was all state funded. The Matsu campus of UAA, all those buildings out there were all state funded. One other piece of that was the Matsu rail extension. You remember the rail extension that was going to run down to the Port of McKenzie, and buying the right of way for that and starting the build of that, and and all the benefits that was going to bring to the Matsu. You could see it. You could see it 10,000 miles away that this was not, the economics were not supporting this. The coal sales out of the Healy mine to Korea, which everybody touted, were going away. There weren't any other mineral developments that were gonna pay the way for that railroad extension. And it was just a way that Bill Stoltz was running more and more money into the valley, trying to build up his reputation and his connections, and spending money and his friends who were doing these things, building these things, just trying to build away. Well, I had to chuckle the other day when I read the Frontiersman, and the headline was "End of the line for rail link to Port McKenzie, Borough to pursue conversion to a road." The rubber's finally come to hit the road. People have figured out the rail extension doesn't work, and they're going to cancel it and talk about now, using the cleared right of way and all the buildup to convert it to a road. It's humorous to me because I took a lot of slings and arrows. I mean, there was a Herald at the time who kept, whamming me for, being against the rail extension because I thought it was a boondoggle. And it was, and I just took a lot of slings and arrows back in that time for being opposed to the rail extension and being opposed to some of the other capital spending items. It just I chuckled when I saw that headline. But it does inform going forward. There's two things that I think it does inform. One is the Ambler Road extension that the administration seems to be hell bent on doing, even though there's not an economic case. There's not companies out there who are willing to pay the fare that support that road. They'll say they are, but they haven't put their money where their mouth is in terms of prepayments and in terms of commitments to use that road. So that's one that's sort of the new Matsu rail extension. And the other is the Anchorage Assembly is pushing ahead on making changes to the Port of Alaska, what they renamed the Port of Alaska, to try to get state support of it. And the Anchorage Assembly is starting to make commitments about the redesign and the construction at the port. I'm not sure Anchorage has got the money to do it. And what we may be seeing is the beginning of the next level of, if you build it, the state will have to pay for it in the end.
Right. Yeah, it's not if you build it, they will come. It is if you build it, the state will pay for it.
And so I'm concerned. I mean, I know it's a municipal matter. I know it's being handled by the assembly, but from a state fiscal standpoint, I'm concerned about what the assembly is doing at the Port of Anchorage, because I can just see that. Oh, but you have to pay for it now.
Well, there's multiple options on the table right now, and the one that's being favored by the mayor includes a $200 million increase for larger facilities that even the shippers and the users there at the port say that's too much. We don't need. So I don't know. They're like trying to future-proof it when there's no demand. If you build it, they will. I don't know. But it's $200 million worth of if-come, and I'm just not sure that makes sense either. More boondoggles ahead, I guess. That's the history of the state right there in a nutshell. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad, thanks so much for coming on board.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
Back with more. The Michael Duke Show continues. Hour 2, dead ahead. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we look at this and the assembly is like, well, they want one thing. The mayor and others want another. But I had to laugh because even the ADN is saying, that the mayor is pushing for this. Change. But he said that, they're pushing for an expanded building concept that would build uniformly wide terminals capable of accommodating larger cranes for offloading cargo. But it's $200 million more expensive, and it's received pushback from the assembly, cargo companies that use the facility, and Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski is what the article quotes here. But what got me was that even the cargo companies are like, whoa, that's way more room than we need. Why would you spend an extra $200 million on stuff that we can't use? I mean, that seems like the definition of a boondoggle at that point.
It does. And it's we talk a lot about the market in this state. We're all Republicans. We talk about, respecting the market. Well, let's respect the market. I mean, let's look back at the Matsu Rail extension. Nobody was willing to pay for that. The reason the state was paying for it was to have a boondoggle, because the companies, Isabelli sure as hell wasn't willing to pay for it. The Korean coal companies weren't willing to pay for it. Nobody was willing to pay for it. But we had to have it. Ambler Road. Well, we need this. Why? Nobody's willing to pay for it. They'll tell you they are. They'll tell you they'll develop things and they'll pay for it if things come along. But they're not standing by it in the event it doesn't work out, and the mines never operate, or the road never gets finished, or anything like that. It's the same thing with the port. The market's telling you we don't want that. We, the shippers, we the carriers, are not willing to pay the tariffs that are going to result from that sort of construction. But yet, we plow ahead because we want the best and the best, and we want the best and the latest, and we want the newest and all that sort of stuff. And it's just, listen to the market. If the market's not willing to pay for it, don't do it. And we've continually ignored the market in this state, which has continually run us into boondoggles like the Matsu Rail extension, like Ambler, and like the port threatens to be.
Brad, that's because they know better than you how that money went, right? I mean, I joke about it, but that really is what all this continues. Every problem we seem to be talking about all boils down to somehow these politicians and these bureaucrats, they've been anointed by God with some kind of special knowledge that they know better than you how that money needs to be spent. And that's like, it makes no sense. When the shippers are saying, whoa, we couldn't fill that up with 100 years worth of whatever. And they're like, well, but we still need it. We're future proofing it, $200 million more. I mean, you'll have to pay, but this is what happens time and time and time again. And it's always OPM. It's always other people's money.
Oh, sure it is. Sure it is.
Yeah. Their hope is if they build it out big enough, somebody will have to step in and pay for it. Go ahead.
And you know who the OPM is? The OPM is ultimately the PFD. It's ultimately middle and lower income Alaska families. And whoever had, Keithley won't mention middle and lower income Alaska families on their bingo card. You win or you lose, whichever side of that you have. But that's what's happened. The money we spent on the Matsu Rail extension, the state money we spent on the Matsu Rail extension, was less money we had in the CBR, and ultimately less money that we've had to support state spending, and ultimately leads to a reduction in the PFD. The same thing with the Ambler Road project, the same thing with this port. The other people's money that the state ultimately will be looking at to cover the cost of the port is reductions in the PFD. So they're dealing with other people's money, and they're dealing with other people's money that they aren't. I mean, it's the top 20% making these decisions, knowing that they can backstop it by cutting the payments that are important to middle and lower income Alaska families. It's, we say we're Republicans in this state. We say we believe in the market. We really don't.
Well, right. Again, because we care about one thing and one thing only, that is the continuation of the public economy over anything else, including the private economy. I mean, again, they're not listening to the private economy people. They're not looking at it. This is, again, more government spend for government's sake, because we know better. We know better we predict that that's going to expand, and government will pay for it. And so we're happy, and people will be employed by it, and that'll be good. That's what the whole thing is about.
And they are listening to a very small sector, the fairly small segment of the private economy, and that's the private economy gets to build this stuff. The contractors. Oh boy, yeah, let's do that. Let's build.
Let's go for the $200 million option. We'd like to I have a pool to put in the back of my yard.
I have kids to put through college. I have vacations to take. I have that second condo down in Hawaii to buy. Build that sucker. Yeah, we need all of that. That's what's driving this. That's what drives these projects. That's what drove the Matsu Rail extension, Bill Stoltz's ego, plus, contractors wanting to spend money on it. That's what drives Ambler Road, and that's what's driving the port. People, yes, we need to build that stuff. I need to get the contracts, and I need to buy that second condo down in Hawaii.
It's Well, I mean, I guess we've been doing this for a lot of years. It's a little disappointing to continue to watch the same things happen over and over. I feel like it's Groundhog Day, only with a change of scenery, right? It's the same thing over and over and over again with just a set dressing change. And here we go. What a change. What a change.
The thing that triggered it this week was seeing that article about the Matsu rail extension. We're finally going to give up. I mean, it just sat out there for a long time. We'll get back to that. Don't worry about it. We're going to have mining someplace, and we'll use that someday. And that was sort of the theory, and we may still be there. I mean, people may say, "Oh no, we can't put a road over that. We still need to preserve it."
We'll see what happens. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad, thanks so much.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we got more coming up. The Michael Dukes Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Hour 2 is dead ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, baby. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to the program. Tuesday, we just finished up with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. He had a bunch of stuff to say about a bunch of stuff, including where we're going with the capital projects, what we should be doing, and as we factor the budget, the war on the PFD, and more. It's not necessarily good news, folks. It's just, I'm just thinking about this. What is the definition of insanity, Dukes? Well, let's see. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting. I mean, we've been hammering on this for 10, 15, 20 years in some of these areas and aspects. And, while listeners may agree, we seem to be making very little headway with the powers that be because somehow they know. They know better than you how that should all be spent. It's just wow. Just wow, man. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, welcome back to the program. We could rehash a lot of the stuff that Brad brought up, but I just don't know if I have the heart for it this morning because it's a little bit depressing. A little bit depressing that we have to still continue to go over this. So maybe we'll talk about a couple of the stories that are going on around the state, and maybe even one that's going around the country. We talked about this. I had to laugh because on Friday, we talked about the country western singer Jason Aldean, right? Because he's got that song that's come out called Try That in a Small Town. And it has raised such a stink amongst the woke crowd, the diversity crowd, the easily offended crowd. I don't know, whoever. I mean, it didn't affect me. I've never even heard the song, right? So it doesn't really even affect me whether I liked it or hated it. It doesn't really affect me. But boy, it is just raised. It was such a stink. You thought this was going to be like a little blip on the radar, but it just keeps going. But Jason Aldean, he should be, that guy should be laughing all the way to the bank because all this controversy. I mean, it's like the old adage that any news is good news, right? Because all this controversy has, it's not hurt Jason Aldean. I mean, he put out a statement talking about how people have basically, accused him of everything from racism to, I don't know, shrinkage. Anything that they could accuse him of, they are accusing him of. But he is going to be laughing, I think, all the way to the bank. Try That in a Small Town, which was released back in May, debuted at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 list. The track experienced the biggest sales week this last week for a country song in over 10 years. According to sources like Luminate, which tracks a lot of this music and stuff, the song hit 11.7 million on-demand audio and video streams between July the 14th and July the 20th, marking a, brace for it, 1,000% increase from the previous week. Prior to the music video's release, the track accounted for 1 million streams, almost 1 million streams in the U.S. The digital sales for the song increased from 1,000 to 228,000 in those same weeks, respectively. I mean, the network Country Music Television, which apparently is the country version of VH1, I don't really watch it, but it pulled the video from this hullabaloo, right? This outcry. They removed the video from its rotation. The video had about 350,000 views on YouTube when they pulled it. Well, that controversy didn't. This is like the Morgan Wallen thing all over again. They pulled it. It had just over 350,000 views. Now it has over 16 million views and is the number 1 trending video under the music category on YouTube. My God, you should write more controversial songs every now and then just to see people, get all hot and bothered and worked up about it. I mean, Jason Aldean, good for him. Just all the way. This is what kills me. Were you trying to virtue signal by bashing on the song? And now it has had exactly the opposite effect of what you were looking for, that somehow you wanted to decry this guy for writing about life in a small town or whatever, or topics that you didn't care about. And now all of a sudden, all your caterwauling has led to nothing more but more success for the artist in question. You cannot. Again, it was like when Morgan Wallen had that drunken screed that he threw out there that one time, and all of a sudden, radio stations were dropping him left and right, and his album went to number 1. Because the consumers, they didn't care what the talking head said. They didn't care what the powers that be or the conservative or the woke police or whatever it was. They didn't care. The people were like, oh, really? What's this all about? Let me go look at it. Let me go listen to it. Let me go watch it. Let me go buy it. That is the true indication of what people are thinking and what people feel about this kind of stuff. But Jason Aldean, all the way to the bank, my friend. Number 1, 16 million views on. I mean, I could live for 1,000 years and never get 16 million views on my videos on YouTube, which is fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying he goes from 350,000 to 16 million views in a week. That's great. That's great. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I can't. That stuff just continues to backfire on them. It's like this whole thing with The Sound of Freedom, right? The Sound of Freedom movie that we keep hearing, that they keep banging on about how it's just wrong. Even Reason Magazine had an article that was talking about the Sound of Freedom and how it glorifies vigilantism and all this other kind of stuff, and it missed the whole point of what was going on. But Sound of Freedom still came in at number 3 after Barbie and Oppenheimer this weekend. It added another 20 theaters. It's made over $124 million. And because people continue to go see it. People continue to like the message of what that movie is. Now, I still haven't seen it myself, but I hear great things about it. And the news media and the talking heads and the commentary can all run it down and beat it down and try and tie it to some kind of QAnon thing or what. But the people, I think, they're not as fooled. They're not as sheep-like as it seems like a lot of these news media outlets and the talking heads want to believe. Well, if we just say that it's bad, the people will go, they won't go see it. But it's not what's going on. Not what's going on. Sound of Freedom beat out Mission Impossible, A Dead Reckoning. It beat out Indiana Jones. It beat out Insidious, The Red Door. It beat out all these other, I mean, Mission Impossible is only in its second week, and Sound of Freedom beat it out again. Keep doing it, folks. That's all I'm saying. Keep doing it. If you want to keep pounding the pavement and telling people how bad it is to do all this stuff, people are just going to go do it. I think in some cases to be contrarian, and in other cases, they just can't believe that it's as bad as you say it is, and so they go do their thing. But whether it's a country music song or whether it's a movie, Americans are still going to vote with their dollars and go do those things. And God bless them. God bless them for doing that. That's all I can say right now. All right. Let's, what else do I got? I got just a couple minutes here. The governor has come out with a new veto. The governor on Friday vetoed the fourth bill of his 5-year tenure, canceling legislation intended to deregulate. This is how the Alaska Beacon writes, to deregulate electric bike use in Alaska. Now, that's not how it's written in the press release from Ashley Carrick, who was trying to carry the water on this. She put out a press release on yesterday that came through that I got a copy of that said he was vetoing this bill. And the reason he was vetoing the bill is that it, quote, creates unnecessary bureaucracy by regulating a recreational activity. Ashley Carrick goes on to quote and to say basically, well, this bill passed the legislature nearly unanimously, and it did. It passed the legislature, both houses, with only one dissenting vote in both chambers. She says passage of the bill in both bodies was a culmination of 5 sessions of work started by my predecessor, Adam Wool, yada, yada, yada. The governor's reasoning for vetoing is also inconsistent with what the bill actually does by defining e-bikes in statute, using the industry standard definition adopted by 39 states. This bill moves forward the current technology and clears up a legal gray area around what electric bikes are. It also provides regulatory authority to local governments and state agencies to limit or expand current e-bike usage where they see fit. To me, that's the golden sentence right there. Anything, and I don't care why the governor vetoed it, quite honestly. I mean, I don't have an electric bike. I don't see myself buying an electric bike. I really don't have a dog in this fight. But anytime I see something where they were going to give regulatory authority to local governments and to state agencies to try and limit or expand or give any kind of power or regulatory burden over something, I'm happy to see it go away. I really, really am. I'm happy to see it go away because, why does the government need control over, electric bikes? Why does the government need control over those kind of things? But of course, everybody's all worked up about it. And now there's even rumors that, the reason why he eliminated that is because she was very vocal about his vetoes on the education bill. And this is just punitive or, retaliatory and everything else, to which the governor's office pointed out that he supported other bills for people who had been very vocal about his vetoes and called for an override and everything else. I don't know. I don't know what the governor's reasoning was based other than what he said, but I'm not really interested in the government having more power or more control over whether it is recreational or whether it's even people's primary mode of transit or anything else. I'm just not interested. I'm just not interested in the government having more control. So good for you, Governor. Good for you. I'm happy that that's going on. But dictators and regulators got to dictate and regulate. That's what they got to do. All right, we got to go. I mean, I don't care if it was a full unanimous vote. I really don't. I haven't spoken. I didn't even know this bill existed until the veto. But anytime you could stop more regulation from government, that's a win in my book. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke Show.
Okay. I mean, I just saw, again, I don't even have a dog in this fight. To me, it's like, it doesn't, but I just looked at it and said, yeah. I mean, anytime when in Ashley Carrick's own words, that the bill provides a regulatory authority to local governments and state agencies to limit or expand current e-bike usage. And then I was like, nope. None your business. None your business. And in the lamentations from the Alaska Beacon article were like, oh, local municipalities were looking for guidance and they wanted more power to regulate. Nope. None ya. I'm done with you. None ya. Stop. Go away. Leave me alone. Not interested in participating in your regulatory madness. That's just what they need. That's just what government needs, is one more thing to regulate, right? I mean, that's the whole point there. All right. I suppose I could get caught up in the chat room real quick. I got Chris Story going to be coming on here in just a second. And the biggest movie, it wasn't Sound of Freedom, it was Barbie. Well, no, of course it was Barbie. Barbie was a new release. I never said it was the biggest movie. Yeah. I'm going back. Ever wonder if maybe the marketing gurus created the controversy to push people to buy the album out of spite? Maybe. I don't know. Just, Jerica says it happened. Same thing happened with The Passion of the Christ. It was so controversial that even those who hated it went and saw it in the theaters. I mean, maybe somebody is Machiavellian enough for that reverse psychology thing. I don't know. I don't know, what's the point of an electric bike? Well, I mean, it's fun. You can ride it without having to, the whole point was that you could ride it without having to pedal the whole way, right? Makes it longer and you could do big treks with it and everything else. The bill would, Barbara said, the bill would create a regulatory structure for bicycles more extensive than exists for four-wheelers and snow machines. Again, they can never not overcomplicate it. It's astonishing. All right, let's go get see if we can jump in with Chris Story and get him ready and squared away for the show this morning, and we'll see what he has to say. How about that? Go over here, and it's ringing. Look at that. We got it working.
Good morning, Michael.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm on top of the world here in my own backyard.
In top of the world here in my own mind. I'm just in top of the world.
My own backyard. I'm trying to blend all the brands.
I know you are doing a good job. I think that,
Thank you.
you know, it's you're
also, I coined a phrase for where I think you're at this morning: irregulatory bowel syndrome.
Irregulatory.
You wanted, you're like not for regulation, so you're irregulatorily bowel syndrome complex, simplex 4.
Herpes simplex 27. Yes. Doc gave me a cream. It's all fine and cleared up now. Don't worry about it.
I mean, have you ever used the word simplex in any other context? Of course not.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it? So what's the topic today, my friend?
Arithmetic.
Really?
That means math. That means math.
You're going to teach us the new math. Is that the point here?
Yeah. Just call it new math.
We're going to call it new math. Chris is going to join us on that. All right. Well, we're about 20 seconds out, so you hold the line, Mr. Story, and we'll be right back to you. We'll get something about this figured out here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Folks, please like and share the show, like and follow the show page, do all the YouTube-y stuff and everything else. Let's get this going on. Here we go. All right, welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show, Tuesday edition. That means we get to do our weekly Betterment segment, Uplift segment, positive mental attitude, positivity segment with our life guru and coach and friend, Chris. I use that term loosely. Chris Story. Hello, my friend. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Michael. Doing better than well. I'm going to go with fantastic.
You're going to go with fantastic. All right. I guess before we get down into the weeds, the first question that popped up when you came on here, people were like, when is the next Audible book going to be available? And I just got to say, that's on Chris. I mean, I have nothing to do.
Right. Yeah. I've had it in my hands for less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
It's all Chris's fault because he's had it. I gave it to him. He's had it. It's 24 hours.
Yeah, boy.
He got it Sunday night, and that's pretty much it. He's all done with this at this point. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Chris, today you're going to talk to us about the maths, arithmetic. Tell me what's going on. What are we discussing here?
Well, you coined then the phrase new math. So I think let's do that because we want to trigger people just like the music, Jason Aldean and Sound of Freedom. Yeah, let's trigger folks with new math.
Chris is going to teach us all about the new math, folks. It's so much better than the old math.
Yeah, I'm so irritated already. I want to turn up the volume. Cheryl Richardson is a life coach and a speaker and somebody. Tiffany and I ran across a PBS special she did about 20 years ago. And I can tell you almost nothing from her hour-long presentation, but one quote, one sentence, and it has stuck in my mind all these 20 years later. She said, and I'm paraphrasing, to improve upon your life, it's often less about what you add and more about what you remove. So it's about subtraction. What do you remove from your life that will make a higher quality or more impactful life versus what you add? Again, this has stayed with me for 20 plus years. It's probably 22 years ago.
Right.
And you think about this. You think about, first of all, I'm so grateful she said it, number one. And how many times have you thought about saying something, had an idea, thought I might share this with somebody, I might share this with a group, but who am I? I don't know. But what if something you said stuck with somebody and made a difference in their life 2-3 decades from now, that they're better off for you having said it? First off, I think that's one of those reminders in my life that, like, wait a minute, who do you think you are? Well, that's exactly who you are, and you become who you think you are, and you have something to add to the conversation. It's like Joe Stump said, never open your mouth unless what you're about to say will improve upon the silence. Michael, I try to do that here I'm not always sure I accomplished that, but Cheryl Richardson did. And this math problem has stuck with me ever since. And I think about it from time to time when I'm looking at maybe a new business. Tiffany and I are thinking about acquiring a new property. We'll talk to ourselves and we'll use that sense like, wait a minute, is what we're about to do going to improve upon our lives such that the addition of it is better than taking some time and looking at what should we be removing? So often when we've removed something or let go of something, oh, it's like losing 100 pounds. It's like losing this weight on your shoulders that maybe you didn't even really realize you were carrying. So that's the all call today, is to say, when we look at math, you can multiply the results in your life perhaps by employing subtraction versus just addition in this overstimulated world.
We are all very, and it's like you're speaking to my brain today, because I got to be honest with you. I have been, just let's go back to the audiobook. I've been working on that thing for a while. I mean, you sent it to me the first part of December, and I just finally got it to you because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to do those things, and I don't have a lot of time. But boy, it was really weighing on me. Like, it was like that thing that, and once I subtracted it, and it's amazing how well I slept on Sunday night. It's amazing how well I felt yesterday when I knew that wasn't in the back of my mind all the time. We do that all the time. We procrastinate, or we put something off, or we prioritize something else. But when we finally get stuff done and we subtract it, it is amazing that the relief and the pressure that can come off that you didn't even realize it was there, right? You didn't even know it was weighing down on you. It requires some of that self-analysis to decide to look at your life and say, wow, did I need to add to it, or was it better to subtract it and get more free time up? I mean, that's it. Like I said, you're speaking right to me today.
A really great point. I was talking to somebody yesterday about a business opportunity, and I could hear some hesitancy. They agreed to it, and then I heard hesitancy in his voice, and I said, hold on a second. And I like to just be incredibly transparent and blunt. Might come across as rude sometimes, but it really is just to get to the essence. Let's boil this down. I said, I'm hearing some hesitancy. Do you feel that? Am I mistaken, or is there some hesitancy in your saying yes to this opportunity? And he said, well, and I said, tell you what, okay, there is. Good. Let's snuffle it out right now. Let's get this hesitancy on the table. And we talked about a couple of other options. And I said, you can say no. I mean, what will make me happier than you saying yes today out of an obligation is to say no and not be resentful later, because this is going to be a year-long plus project. So if you really don't want to do it and you'd rather say no, you'll be better off. I'll be better off. Everyone involved will be better off if you simply say no for the right reasons than yes for the wrong reasons. That's a subtraction versus addition.
Right.
And when you divide, oh, look at me going on with the math analogy. When you divide your time in multitasking, it's actually not multitasking, it's switch tasking. It's a little bit like an emergency room doctor can look like in the throes of an emergency. See a gunshot wound victim is wheeled in. It might look like, man, this doctor's doing 18 things at once. Yes, with a singular patient. Now you take that ER doc and you move him from room to room to room, patient to patient, everybody's going to die. He has to focus on that one patient on the table in the moment, even though there might be 38 things going on around him.
Right.
It's really not, it's just switch tasking. That's another thing that somebody shared with me a number of years ago, is that there is no such thing as multitasking. It's switch tasking. And when you remove the extra things and you can focus and become singularly focused on the thing in front of you, it becomes not only more rewarding, it becomes probably more successful, and it becomes a richer life versus just more in your life. So it all does boil down to the math.
It's interesting because this has applications in so many different things. I mean, you were just, you're talking about business opportunities. Do I add to my plate or do I subtract from my plate? I talked about tasks, things commitments that you've made, things that you could let go or should let go or just get finished or whatever. But it's also in life as well, right? I mean, we are constantly surrounded by the input from social media and the feeds and TV and everything else, that we need this and we need that. I saw an interview the other day somebody was talking about fires or whatever, and their life was affected by one of the wildfires in California. And basically, they lost almost everything. And they said it was really a freeing moment because I realized that I had all this stuff that while I loved it, now I don't have any of it. And I realized I don't really need it all to get on with my life. I mean, I think that's why people like Maria Kondo have become so popular because, like, does this bring me joy kind of thing, where people are pitching out stuff in there. And I mean, hey, I'm a pack rat from way back, and I still keep thinking, man, I should just get rid of half this stuff because I don't even need it. Why is it even here? Kind of thing. And so that subtraction, the equation, there's my math pun for the day, the equation that Chris is laying out is actually applicable to multiple areas of your life that maybe you don't need to add more. Maybe subtracting some would give you more joy, would give you more confidence, would relieve some of the stress and pressure and make you feel like a whole new human being.
I love it. I love it. Absent the wildfire, of course, you could do this without tragedy or without natural disaster. You can simply, for example, maybe stop watching the news, for example, just for a month. Say, you know what, for the remainder of this and next month, I'm going to remove watching the news from my life. Free up a couple or more hours a day, read the news, subscribe to a couple of newsletters or websites that will get directed updates and news to you as you wish. Maybe not directed to your phone screen, but they come into your email. Stay informed and up to date on what's going on. Versus entertained, because I think watching the news has become a form of entertainment such that by removing that alone, you might free up. And I'm so grateful to Fox News for having fired Tucker. It's freed up an extra hour to an hour and a half a day for me, Monday through Friday. I love Tucker and I miss him, but at the same time, when he sends out one of his tweets and it's a 5 or 10 or 15-minute watch. Well, I did watch the Andrew Tate interview, an hour and a half or whatever it was. But I mean, it made me realize though, like, wow, because that was the only thing I went to Fox News for anymore.
Well, that's news is almost like self-flagellation these days, right? It's not entertainment. It's self-flagellation. I come here to just get beat down, and I look forward to it because it's it's the responsible thing to do or whatever. I mean, I stopped reading or watching the news years ago where I would sit down and watch the news. Now for the show, I'll read some news stories or whatever, but it doesn't come to my phone. It doesn't come to my email. I'll go out and search out some stuff because otherwise you just get overwhelmed and you get beat down and for me, I got angry. I was a very angry person, 15 years ago because, and I needed to subtract that from my life.
And see with that new free time, what you might decide to add back into your life. Maybe not. Maybe you do go take the Marie Kondo approach and you go minimalist with a lot of different things. But removing a couple of mindless habits that aren't adding to the quality of your life could lead to more life in your years. Maybe not more years to your life, but maybe more life in your years, as George Carlin so wisely said. And in this overstimulated world, so you can divide your time. And you can simply try to do more and more and more, or take that Zen approach and subtract to the least, and maybe even take this approach towards relationships. And I'm always reluctant to even think about this equation, as you say, in terms of a relationship, because I'm not suggesting that you remove somebody from your life. However, if you take from a speech that Denzel Washington gave, he said, if you hang around 5 stupid people, you'll be the 6th. You hang around 5 rich people, you'll be the 6th, and so on. And it's so true. And you and I've talked about that before, that you become the average of the 5 people you hang around. And, in the next 5 years, you become 5 years older. Will you become 5 years wiser, wealthier, healthier, happier? Those are all determined upon, the answers are determined upon what you, I think, remove from your life today. And maybe who. And it's not that you have to go out and unfriend a bunch of people on social or whatever. Did you know you can just simply stop looking for it? You can engage in a different way. Instead of adding to the noise, you could subtract by asking some keen questions. Hey, tell me about when you were 14. What was your favorite movie when you were 14? And maybe we move off of some hot button topic. Les Brown said he's got cookie friends. He's got 2 a.m. friends. He's got friends that he would call if he's in jail and needs bail money. He has all kind of different friends that some friends, he said, I just don't talk politics. We don't agree on anything politically. You don't have to remove that person from your life, but maybe remove that plank of the conversation. I have a really good friend. One of my best friends is polar opposite, antithetical to me on every single political issue. I no longer discuss politics with him, and we have a great friendship. And so I've removed something and added back in something better. And it's what else we talk about and what else we have in common. And we have, in fact, the more I think about it, we have quite a few friends like that are liberal. Hey, I allow somebody to be wrong and still can love them.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what we, back in my day, that's what we used to do, right? We used to be able to find commonality with people and not have to talk about that stuff. Or even if we did, we just agreed to disagree. And that was fine. We still had friendships and things like that. It's crazy. But the subtractive power here of letting go or stopping or divorcing, cutting out, doing whatever it is, there is power in that. And it doesn't always have to be more, right? That seems to be the day and age of consumerism and everything else. It's always more. Well, sometimes less is more in the long run.
Yeah. And this is,
go ahead.
I know this is going to also be triggering because it's sort of, hot topic right now, but imagine Michael Dukes in a stiletto heel standing on a linoleum floor versus wearing a platform heel. Our mutual friend Kipper McGee puts that in my mind every time we talk about, I hire him for a radio coaching gig. He always talks about, Chris, remember the stiletto heel on the linoleum floor. Concentrated, minimal effort makes a deeper impression.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And my legs look good in those. I'm just saying right now. Final thoughts, Chris Story. You did get a copy of The Watchmen in audio. And so people did ask, when is it coming out? How long do you think before The Watchmen, which is available right now in print, but is going to be on Audible here sometime in the near future? What do you think? A few weeks here, or what's your?
Oh, no. No. Less than, I would say, sure. Our original pub date goal was July 1. We ended up with the ebook and the print paperback edition by July 1, and now are looking for August 1 for the audio release. And I got to tell you, Michael, it's I'm almost done with it. I'm almost done listening. It is fantastic. I'm listening to it a little bit. I guess it's a little, and this is going to sound arrogant, but it's a little bit like maybe how Beethoven would have felt watching, the New York Philharmonic play one of his symphonies or something. It's amazing what you've done with it. Yes, it was well written. It's a good story, but oh man, you bring it to life in a way that I'm listening to this going, who wrote this? This is amazing. You just perform it so brilliant.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to perform. Great story. Very, very dark. I like that. It allowed me to tap into my inner sadist / madman / evil twin. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, hopefully,
and that's the only thing I would just putting that pin in that is just that if you love Born to Live in the Backyard Millionaire, you probably won't like this. If you love The Making a Man, you'll love this.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a different feel. I mean, Backyard Millionaire was like a nice, crisp, beautiful summer day. And this is like a dark, stormy night where you huddle up next to the fire and love to be scared. It's good. It's
and
really,
grandma's
really
and grandma's got a butcher knife.
And grandma's got a butcher knife behind you, and you don't see it. It's going to be good. All right. So, The Watchman, his latest book in the Jacob Mann series. Of course, he's got The Making of Man, The Backyard Millionaire, Born to Live. So many different books, so little time. Chris Story, the man from Homer. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on board and joining us today.
Thank you, Michael. My pleasure.
All right, hold the line, folks. We're out of time. We got to go. Back with more right after this.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Oh man. All right. So good stuff. Well, I'm glad you like it. I definitely enjoyed performing it. I'm interested to see what other people say, because again, it took it to it was like next level. It was like next level good dark thriller. And I dig that. There was some good stuff in there. Some shocks, I tell you. When I did the first read through, I was like, what? Oh man, what? My voice got a little high.
No, you didn't.
What just happened? Anyway, I look forward to the full rundown from you not getting run down from you, but the full breakdown from you when it's all said and done.
Hey, maybe that'll happen in the next one. Actually, the next one is in progress, and I'm about probably halfway through writing it. And it takes place. I'm calling it it's a ghost story, almost not a gothic ghost story, but kind of, because it takes place in a remote cabin. So I've isolated Jacob from the rest of the world, and he's in this cabin out in the wilderness, and it's a little bit based on somewhat of a true story, and it's a little more introspective. I think I told you this before, but I'll repeat it because it's worth repeating. It's called Jacob Mann's Search for Meaning. It's great. I'm enjoying it.
It's like he, Viktor Frankl, his estate just called and wants to talk to you. But it'll be good. I mean, I don't know how good that book will be to read, because it'll just be me talking in my head for however many hours that is, but it'll be good. I love it. I can't wait to see the next installment from Jacob. I'm excited to see where he goes from here. And it's inspiring. It's good stuff. So I appreciate that. Final thoughts, Chris Story.
Imagine if the governor of Alaska was a little bit more like the governor of Florida and would do more to subtract from the laws versus add to them, such as his e-bike veto. Bravo, wonderful. But at the same time, what if you were to make a commitment to never again create mandates that restricted your movement in the freest last frontier on the earth? What if you were to deduct and remove those powers so that the next governor wouldn't have opportunities to mandate closures of businesses and so forth? He could take a page from this Reduction Act and start removing some of those powers now while he's still standing tall for Alaska.
Right. Well, like I said, I don't even care the reason why. I don't care what the reason given was at this point. Anything that reduces government regulation on anything, I'm in favor of. I mean, at this point, Don't even tell me why. Just tell me you did it, and I'll pat you on the back. Good job. Good job. What I found ironic is that the legislature almost unanimously passed it, and then they're just shocked that he did it. And I'm like, well, again, any regulation, anytime you could stop regulation, I'm okay with it. I don't care if the whole crowd is like, this is great. No, I'm just not interested in that. So it's
so let's celebrate his subtraction.
Yeah, celebrate his subtraction from the equation. It's the equation of life. See, there's your next book title. The equation of life, how to subtract and multiply your fruitfulness. Ooh, see?
Subtract and get more.
Subtract and get more. Yeah, that's an equation. That is the new math. Subtract and get more. How does that work? I'm not sure. All right. Well, Chris Story, thank you, my friend. Good to hear from you, and look forward to talking to you next week. Well, here on the show, and look forward to talking to you later this week on the book. We'll make sure we got to get it in the pipeline. I've already drug my feet enough.
Sir.
So, all right.
You demand. You demand.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you calling in. Thanks for being part of it today. All right, Chris Story, the man from Homer, comes on board and shares with us every week. I needed that. That was good. Like I said, he was speaking directly to me at that point. I was so... I've been working on it. I was working on it, but there's just only so many hours in the day to get things done. And finally I had to knuckle down and spend a full, I don't know, I think I spent 18 hours this weekend getting everything kind of squared away, and put it all. It's good. All right. Oh man. Chris mentioned something about the governor standing tall, and it was like, the chat room immediately just explodes and like, devil, demon, I wonder what would happen if the governor ran for re-election now. Donna Ardwin. Oh, that's a t-shirt. We should get you a t-shirt that says that. I'm a big fan of subtraction. We know. That's why politicians hate her. She's a big fan of subtraction. Politicians? No, they're a big fan of exponential multiplication. That's what they're big fans of. Get not just multiplication, exponential multiplication. That's what they're fans of, for sure. All right. Well, I guess we should jump back into it. I don't really have I really don't have much more for this hour. We could continue to talk about, I guess I could fire up the phone lines and we could take some calls and see what goes on. What else is on your mind today? We'll jump into that right now. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share. Like and follow. Send some stars. Send some stickers. Do whatever you need to do. Help support the show. I appreciate you guys. Let's get back into it. Here we go. Thanks for calling the call-in line of the Michael Duke Show. Powered and... Okay, welcome back to the program. Thanks for coming in and joining us, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. One final segment here today for the show. I kind of hit all the stories that I wanted to hit on. There was a story from Suzanne Downing talking about the satellite launch. Yesterday, we were talking about Starlink, and they're continuing to expand their constellation of satellites and do everything else. But some bad news, I guess, for rural Alaska. According to spacenews.com, the first Astranis-built satellite for rural Alaska won't be delivering commercial broadband for the Alaska-based Pacific Dataport because of a malfunction. The satellite can't keep its solar array pointed at the sun. The California-based manufacturer has reported to trade publications. The hope was to have a micro-geo satellite coverage for much of the sparsely populated and remote areas of Alaska affected by the fiber optic cable break. Meanwhile, Quintillion, which is trying to repair the fiber optic cable, has updated its repair schedule. The current plan of work is to have repair operations start on August the 9th and run through the 22nd. The schedule is based on the area being 90% free of ice for that time to work on it. Now, again, Pacific Dataport and Astranis is working to deploy a full replacement satellite in early 2024, but service for the summer, the hopes for that appear to have been dashed. My suggestion is maybe they should just reach out to Starlink and see what they've got to offer at this point. I don't know how much it costs to put that Astranis satellite up in orbit, but man, maybe they should just, Starlink, baby. It's there. It's working. Maybe not to the capacity that it needs to, but hopefully by late August, once they put that final batch of satellites in, and I should actually go and take a look at that to make sure that that's still up and running. That was the target deadline in May or April, was the end of August, but we'll see. But again, everybody's trying to find solutions to this, and it's going to get crowded up there. If Astranis and Musk and everybody else it's going to be crowded up there. It's a parking lot up above the state here in the near future. All right, let's go over to the phones. I opened up the phone lines here. You probably heard that when we came back. I forgot to mute something. But let's touch base and see what you guys have to say about, anything we've been talking about today. 907-433-3150. Good time to take some calls and just finish up the show today. We're on a high note, so let's just keep going. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Randy in Fairbanks.
Good morning, Randy. What's on your mind?
Did you say yesterday that you had seen the Barbie movie?
No, I have not seen the Barbie movie. I just said I saw some of the trailers and stuff, but I have not seen the Barbie movie. I have not been to the movies in the theaters in like 4 years, probably. So no, I have not seen the Barbie movie. Did you?
Oh, okay. No, I have not. I have not been in the theaters in 4 years either, I think. I wasn't planning to see the Barbie movie, but I saw an interesting article in yesterday's Fairbanks Daily News Miner, July 24. It says here on page A6, it says, Barbie slammed by conservatives as man-hating woke propaganda amid summer box office success. Anyway, I just wondered if you had seen it, if you thought it was super duper woke or what?
No, I mean, Willie Waffle, of course, reviewed it last week for us, and he did, he did not say that. He said that it's, kind of a fun romp, and it's not. I think a lot of times these days, conservatives love to be just as outraged as some of the snowflake liberals, and I think that they were making, some ado about that. For most of the reports that I've seen from people that I follow and trust, and as far as, looking at this kind of narrative and see whether or not the movie was super, because Willie he has not been afraid to say a movie was like super woke or was too heavy-handed with the narrative or anything like that. He didn't say this, and most of the other reviews that I'm reading are saying it's the same kind of thing. I know Ben Shapiro came out the other day. My wife was telling me that he came out and said, my producers drug me to it, and it's the most woke piece of, whatever, I don't know. I think sometimes people just love to be outraged and they can read into anything. I go to a movie to enjoy the movie, unless it's basically stuffing it down my throat. I can live with it, kind of thing. There's been a few movies where I've been like, oh, that's so heavy-handed. That just subtracts from my enjoyment of it. But for the most part, I think I can go pretty much watch anything and be okay with it.
Yeah, one thing that caught my eye in the article, aside from it saying that it was man-hating, which is probably just all in good fun, but it said, speaking on Fox News, 52-year-old Cruz, meaning Ted Cruz, admitted to not having seen the movie, but still dismissed it as essentially Chinese propaganda. And I thought, what? But apparently in the movie there's a map, and it shows or kind of gives credence to the Chinese claims on the South China Sea,
right?
And because of that, Vietnam, the nation of Vietnam, banned it in their country.
Right. Well, we talked about that a couple weeks ago with Willie as well. It's the 9-dash line there in the South China Sea. But it's typical. I mean, like you said, Cruz just admitted in himself. He's not seen it, but he's sure that it's Chinese propaganda. He's sure that it's trash. That is just typical of today's day and age. I didn't see it, but I know it's absolutely horrible and nobody else should go see it either. I just shake my head on that kind of stuff. And I saw the picture of the 9-dash line that they're talking about, or 8-dash line, whatever the secret number is of dashes that show the South China Sea thing. Maybe they were playing up to the Chinese a little bit, because let's face it, that's a multi-billion-dollar market for movies and everything else, or maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know as the movie is trying to make any kind of political statement. Maybe it is. I haven't seen it, but those that have, that I kind of trust, have been like, this was kind of a fun romp, and it was, kind of lighthearted, and I don't know, man. It's a movie. It's not like it's Citizen Kane. It's not like it's going to try and change the face of humanity with a movie about Barbie.
Yeah, well, thanks, Michael. Also, it said that Ken did not have enough testosterone.
Well, we all know, if you've ever undressed a Ken doll, he doesn't have nearly enough testosterone. That's a fact right there. Ken, you might need a little T-boost, because, it's either that or it's the steroids, one of the two. I don't know what's going on there, Ken. All right, folks, we're out of time for today. I love my job. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day, my friends. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. That's all I can ask. We will see you guys tomorrow. Mike Shower should be our guest, if he's not flying in the air somewhere. Have a great day. All right, all you crazy people, thanks for coming in. Don't forget to like and share the show. Get more people involved. I appreciate you guys coming out. I love you. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Goodbye.